Hello guys, we're going to talk about a reading list for cat. It's not just reading list for cat, reading list per se. You can read it. We're going to list down a list of books which are good to read, good fun to read, useful, energizing, motivating, any of that, any of the good adjectives you would associate with it. Fine. To begin with, we've had an exhaustive list of books to read in blog and video form. We've given the link to that video straight away. This is a follow-up to that. And so we're going to give a list of books that in my mind are from books number 21 to 30 or 21 to 40. The first 20 are sitting on that. And so if you've not seen that, probably you're advised to go through that before you come here. Those are my more preferred books, likelier books. We're appending to that list. We're adding on to that list. So keep that in mind. If you've not seen that first video, hit pause on this, see that. And then if you want to follow up, go through this and keep that in mind. Beyond this, we do offer a very wonderfully designed service called a reading list, and where we send a recommended reading list of give or take one article every day, which goes and hits you in whatever platform you choose. We're there on Telegram, WhatsApp, Facebook group, YouTube community, mailing list, blog, everywhere. And so you get onto this, you just Google Bharath's reading list 2IM and find some platform, or just jot down in comments below this video. We'll reach out to you. Get on there because that's wonderful. And we all want to have a reading list that is curated. We want to read that one high quality article every day, which probably take 20 minutes of my time. But I want somebody to handpick that and send it to me. And it can be across topics. We want something which is curated. And that's the vital word here is curation. And Bharath does a wonderful job of curating that. It is free on all these platforms. So it pays to be on that list. And so now, why on this video we're going to talk about books. What should you read? Books, novels, fiction, non-fiction, or blogs, articles? And the best word, both. Definitely both. And the exam relevance is for shorter articles. And from an exam point of view, whichever competitive exam you take, you're going to see reading comprehension passages. But the sweet spot for kind of the length of passage is 500 to 700 words. More so 500 to 600. From about 450 to 700, that's the length of passage you're likely to counter. Then why should you read long form articles that like the ones that Bharath sends? Why should you read novels? And so you need to build up a certain reading stamina. And you need to get comfortable with the idea of reading, and it should come as second nature, which is when you can pick on fine detail. And so for a long time I used to read in my life academic text and some story text, and I didn't have the ability to pick up funny stuff. I just couldn't get jokes. My teachers in school would rave about how subtle the humor was, and I could stare at a passage for hours together and I would just not get the joke. When written form, humor is kind of does not come through one joke said out. You can't do slapstick on text. And so, but there's a lot of joy to be taken in high quality, witty writing or comic writings, and there's lots of fun to be taken. But that comes once you have read a lot, where your mind, beyond acknowledging facts and figures and numbers and data, has a room to pick what the author is hinting at. Right? And that kind of ability is uber crucial for our exam. And so the exam is never going to say which year was this battle fought, who won that argument, where you just look for a name or a date and then stick it into the answer choice. That era is done. You're going to say, what is the tone of this passage? Which of the following statements is the author least likely to agree with? You first have to figure out what the author is likely to agree with. The author is not going to say, I think these are right and these are wrong. From the way he or she has pitched their argument, you've got to get a sense of where their biases split. Right? So in these things, long form articles are very helpful, because you long form helps the author is saying, look, I'll plant an idea and build on it and dwell on it and talk about it at depth. I'm not worrying under a word limit pressure, and therefore you read between the lines better if you read long form content. So those of you preparing for this exam, definitely read articles much longer than the exam requirement. Definitely read long essays, and definitely have a stab at reading novels. Novels are very useful for that. Good quality novels, doubly so. Right? Now, moving on to a reading list. I'm going to first add up on stuff that we have already, authors and books that we have already mentioned in the previous video. Right? We mentioned Jeffrey Archer. Jeffrey Archer spent a bunch of wonderful short stories. If I remember correct, there are 3 or 4 books of short stories which are brilliant. Especially if you don't have the reading habit, then short stories are a good way to get onto the bandwagon, where you say, look, I'm going to read something that's only 40 pages long, not 400 pages long. And then maybe it puts a smile on my face. I'm not invested in a story and plot as much as I am in the idea of reading and getting some value from shorter pieces. So Jeffrey Archer is a very good writer for short stories. A gentleman called Munro Saki, who's brilliant, writes pleasant, simple stuff, simple short stories. Those are also good. So have a go through them. Among the authors that we have suggested Dan Brown, we suggested Da Vinci Code, written a couple of other books, Angels and Demons, Deception Point. They're good books. I like Da Vinci Code and these Dan Brown books because they make you turn the page. If you don't have the habit, you need to get a bunch of books that will make you flip through really quickly, where the plot is gripping enough for you to want to think about, okay, what comes next. The writing quality is very average, not great. He's a good author. He's very readable, but he doesn't get literature points as much as he gets plot points. And so, which is a similar thing I would say for Chetan Bhagat. When Chetan Bhagat writes stories that we can all relate to, stories that where characters we have seen in our day-to-day, kind of ideas that we link with. Sometimes I think Chetan Bhagat understands this too well, that he doesn't sufficiently spend time on the writing part. He knows he can churn out a hit because he knows which buttons to hit, but he doesn't dwell on ideas deeper longer enough. Which again, you should know what you are getting from a book. If this is what you want, that's what you want. Like I want to watch movies that are carved after years of effort from a director, and then I want to watch a regular movie, watch we guys call a masala movie. And that puts a smile on my face. I'm full of enthu. I like the song and dance routine and a couple of fights and comic bits thrown in. That's brilliant. You should have a sense of what you're getting into. Chetan Bhagat, to some extent Sidney Sheldon, Dan Brown, they cater to this, where the defining quality is, I don't get bored, I keep turning the pages. And that's a very important defining quality to have. Mario Puzo is another author. We have suggested Godfather. Godfather is brilliant, but he's written a couple of other books. So if you're hooked on to Godfather, then you should read the follow-up books. I think there's one book called Last On, Fool's Die. So I read these books a while ago, but I remember enjoying them. So these are books that you can follow up from and then take value on. And so John Grisham is good, Alistair MacLean is good, Mary Higgins Clark is good. These are all wonderful books that are wonderful authors where you can say, okay, I'm picking this author. I like one style, I can read 4 more books, 3 more books, 5 more books. It's a very common tendency of for readers to like one author and then chase that author and then read 3-4 more books. Okay? Follow that. This is a reading list as a broad guideline as to what all things that you can hit upon. By no means is it a defining list and an order and sequence of books that you must read because I'm saying these are good in this order. And so don't restrict your reading. Take where your mind takes you. You need to broaden your scope of style and plot preferences. And you like one style of one author, one genre, then keep reading that. Likely that your author steps out of his comfort zone and then you go and pick another style of book from the same author. Like for Jeffrey Archer, Shall We Tell the President is gripping. Kane and Abel is a long-winded story. Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less is humor. You might suddenly realize that you like the author, then you've picked up a new genre as well. And then you go on there. If you come to humor, no book on reading list is going to be complete without a one hi hello to the big daddy, just P.G.WODEHOUSE. My guy was kind of teaching us, mentoring us back when I was preparing for CAT. He said, you must read P.G.WODEHOUSE, you will really like it, and it's a fantastic author. I found the language to be good, challenging, tough, and I didn't get the jokes. And so I built a reading habit after I finished my graduation. Back when I was in school, I used to read, but not so-called high prose. And so I found the language to be tough. I didn't get the jokes. But you read 1, 2, 3 novels, you start falling in love with P.G.WODEHOUSE and the way he writes prose. And so the funny bit is not the slapstick or context, it is the language. The language sits down with him and bends. And he wields the pen in a way where he can make the simplest of ideas woven into a fabulous metaphor. And you feel like, oh, that's a brilliant way of explaining this idea. It put a smile on my face. It is ridiculously slow pace. It's the exact opposite of Da Vinci Code. A good quality P.G.WODEHOUSE novel will spend 80 pages agonizing about how his prize pig is refusing to eat. And that's all. He is a villager. He is the earl of a place. His number 1 pig is refusing to eat because she's unhappy with something. And they'll spend 80 pages mulling over it. It seems like a a cranky old topic to read a novel on, but the beauty is how well the prose is woven to make this compelling, and it is compelling. The other author which you should try if you like funny bits is Douglas Adams. Again, we have mentioned this quite a few times. You should. The third author for funny bits, which I had not mentioned in the previous thing, is Bill Watterson. And so if you're not compelled, reading novels is not your point, then pick up Calvin and Hobbes, read that. Right? Read Calvin and Hobbes, and it is the joy of writing, the value of brevity just strikes home if you read a bunch of books by Bill Watterson. They're absolutely fabulous. Right? Now, where do we go? What other books are there beyond what we have already spoken about? Agatha Christie is brilliant. She's been one of the most prolific authors. Well written, prose is tight, the mystery is compelling, the pace is high. Hercule Poirot is one of the most timeless characters. Recently, I watched a movie, Murder in the Orient Express, which I thought was actually well made. But the most of the part is because the plot is already there. She's written the book. The book is fabulous. And there's no 1, 2, 3 books. She's written gazillion books. She's a manic writer. So it's a kind of author which you can get on and then read 20 books or 10 books because you like one style and just gobble up. That you need to find 1 or 2 authors like this because you need to have a body of work in your system. And so if you find one author, don't go for diversity. Read for joy. Read for fun. Sherlock Holmes is another series which I would recommend. I never Bhayankar took to it, but the language is very good. Very, for want of a better word, very simply very well written. I don't want to use an adjective which says something wrong about the other books. I don't want to suggest that some other books are less well written. So this is freakishly well written book. So no grammar things, no hyphenated constructions, no long-winded sentences. Good clean prose, and you'll take away something from good language like that. I'm told I've been trying to read books by YUVAL HARARI, which he's carved a niche for himself. As a brilliant mind and a fabulous author, definitely worth checking out. I am currently trying to read a book by Jordan Peterson, 12 Rules of Life. It's kind of lukewarm, but if you're looking for a genre where it is kind of the self-help is a big genre. And I've read a couple of books on that. Sometimes I find books to be too preachy and randomly instructive, and I resent that. Whereas this book is slightly different, but the prose is more complex. So the idea of how our mind operates, that appeals to me, and that is true for both sets of books, the Sapiens and that series and Jordan Peterson. So how are we built to think like? Is an appealing idea. So that is something that works. A bunch of comments on the previous post said, are self-help books good books? Definitely yes, but you need to pick your style. Sometimes I find self-help books to be just oversimplified. The oversimplification is like you can read good prose or you can read Times of India. So if it is too oversimplified, then the book gives you nothing. It leaves you with no advantage or nothing. It doesn't stay in your mind. You just read that thing, that those 3 hours have been occupied, but you're not taking anything away from it subconsciously for the language. One category we had overlooked last time was autobiographies. This again is a genre which I have not read too much into, but I'm going to make one suggestion. The book, The Open, so Autobiography of Andre Agassi, is very well written. So fabulously, he goes into a trip where he thinks about his own thought process and explains them really well. It's not abstruse, it's not vague, it's just very relatable. He's almost like one of us, but except just he's got an extraordinary flair for playing the game, and he's been made to practice to death about that game. So it's a very fun read, also inspiring in patches. So that I would definitely recommend. That's about it. We also have a video on which blogs and websites and articles you can read and follow up on. Do check that out. I cannot stress this more. Find some way of getting onto that list where we hit you with one article every day, almost on every day, so that you have something that comes into your inbox or WhatsApp folder or SMS or email or community feed or somewhere, so that you can say, okay, this seems interesting, I'll pick it up and read. The repository of all those articles are also going to be found on the blog. So you probably can go to the blog and say, I want to read everything from psychology, everything from literature, everything from economics, and be able to see an archive of articles which have been curated for you. So do get on that. Final bit on reading, for all the gyan that we have given and saying you should read, this is a vital thing. You've got to read what in a way which I would call as passive reading. You cannot always read to register and remember and retain and regurgitate. You've got to read to just take it in and have fun. You've got to get into the minds of the people who are at their happiest when they have a book in their hand and not think of it as a chore. You can't say, okay, let me power through this book because I need to finish 3 books for the month. Then you're doing it the wrong way. The funny bit, the reading between the lines, having an insight into how the author is thinking. So some newspaper magazines, when you read, you will get a flavor that this is coming from the author being too left wing. This is coming because this magazine is right wing. You simply cannot get a feel for that if you're always reading consciously and intensely trying to retain, remember and all of that. So read for the sake of joy. Go build a reading habit which is slightly, I won't say erratic, but meandering. Go find, you like one author, read 3 novels. You suddenly see like you like one genre, read some other author on that genre. Then keep moving. Don't restrict yourself to something like a playlist. It simply doesn't work. Fine. Happy reading and best wishes for Cat.